Hello and good morning, students. Welcome to this 55th lecture in the series of e-learning program. In today's lecture, we are going to initiate a new unit, a new chapter in English literature in the second semester book, the name of which is mentioned on the board, as you can see, Writing About Writing, which contains a story named Strong Desire, Wise Action. So let us go ahead and learn about this story and this unit in details. Well, to begin our discussion and our talk, let us understand the objectives of this lecture first. The objectives set over here are the character sketch we are going to read about, that is Mark Twain, who is the writer of this story, Strong Desire, Wise Action. Well, this is not just a story, but a part of a story as named The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. We'll come back to that in details. Second objective will be the introduction to the novel that I am talking about, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, and the character Tom Sawyer itself. Later on, we will be discussing about the new words and phrases after reading the chapter. To move ahead, let us discuss the first thing, that is the character sketch of Mark Twain. Mark Twain, whose full name is Samuel Langhorne Clemens. I repeat, Samuel Langhorne Clemens was known by his pen name Mark Twain. He acquired this name later. He was an American writer, a humorist, an entrepreneur, publisher, and a lecturer. So these are a few qualities of Mark Twain. Further, to understand about Mark Twain, he was born on 30th November 1835 in Florida, United States, and he died on 21st April 1910. So we can say he lived for a quarter century, that is 74 years. And to tell more about Mark Twain, Samuel Langhorne Clemens, who was later known as Mark Twain, worked as a riverboat pilot on the Mississippi River. The novel, The Adventures of Mark Twain, has 35 chapters describing the event in the life of Mark Twain. Some of his notable works include The Adventure of Tom Sawyer, which was written in 1876, and its sequel, The Huckleberry Finn, in 1884, which was known as Huck and Tom. Well, the second chapter from this novel, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, which is named as Strong Temptations, Strategic Movements, which has been given to us in our text by the name Strong Desire, Wise Action. So this story we are going to read and understand, which is one of the chapters of the entire novel, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. Well, I will try and provide you the PDF of the entire novel, The Adventure of Tom Sawyer. For those who are interested in reading a novel, can put your hands on this novel. The link I will try to provide you along with the link of the lecture. So see, if you like the novel, you can read it. It is one of my favorite novels that I have read in my life. So it's good if you read this novel. Moving ahead with the topic, that is Strong Desire, Wise Action, let us now put our hands and understand the summary of this story. But even before that, let us have a short understanding about the character, that is Tom Sawyer. What is Tom Sawyer, the character, all about in this novel, The Adventure of Tom Sawyer? Tom Sawyer is a young boy living with his Aunt Polly on the banks of the river Mississippi. He had an aunt whose name was Aunt Polly, and he lived on the banks of the Mississippi River. All this, what I am saying, is a fictitious character which has been created by Mark Twain, and this is an inspiration that he has got from his life on Mississippi River, where he worked as a riverboat pilot. Well, Tom Sawyer, who is a young boy living with his aunt named Aunt Polly on the bank of the Mississippi River, he seems to most enjoy getting into trouble. So he enjoys getting into trouble. After missing school one day and getting into a fight. So what happens? One day he misses school. He does not go to school and has a fight with one of the boys in his village. Tom is punished with the task of whitewashing the fence. So his aunt gives him a punishment because he has had a fight with one of the boys of the town of the village over there, and he is punished for this, and the punishment is to whitewash the fence. Fence, that is, we have the meaning over here, a barrier, railing or an upright structure enclosing an area of ground to prevent or control entry. A fence being made around the house, called a fence. So that fence was supposed to be whitewashed by Tom Sawyer as a part of punishment. However, he turns the punishment into a bit of entertainment and tricks other boys to finish the work for him. He convinces the boys that the chore is a great honor. Chore means the household work. So he receives small precious objects as a part of the payment for allowing them to do this work. Well, it's a wonderful story that we must read. So without further ado, let us go ahead and read this entire beautiful and a wondrous story. Let us now start reading from the text. Unit number 1, writing about writing. Name of the story or the chapter given to us in the text: Strong Desire, Wise Action. The name given to in the novel the Tom Sawyer is Strong Temptations, Strategic Movement, as I said earlier. Strong Desire, Wise Action, taken from the Adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain, the part 1 we are reading now. Saturday morning came. All the summer world was bright and fresh and full of life. The first line is describing the setting of the plot, the setting of the story, where it all happened, how was that particular day when this incident happened. It was a Saturday morning. Well, usually in the country of America, people have or students have holiday in their school on Saturday. Saturday and Sunday is off, weekly off for them. So Saturday morning came. All the summer world was bright and fresh and full of life. So it was a lively morning that day. The sun was shining, or it was the summer season which is being mentioned over here, all the summer world. So everywhere there was summer, or all the parts where there was summer. So all the summer world was bright and fresh and full of life. So on this particular setting, what happened? Tom appeared in front of the house with paint and a big brush. So who appears in front of the house? Tom seems to come up. So this is the first opening line, the opening scene of the story or the play, we can say. He looked at the fence and all joy left him. And with the paint and the brush in his hand, what was he looking at? He was looking at the fence. Why he was looking at the fence? What he had to do with the fence? He had to whitewash this fence. As I just said in the introduction about Tom Sawyer, a character that he was punished by Aunt Polly. Well, he had to whitewash the fence, and therefore all joy had left him. He was not joyous, he did not have happiness in his heart. So joy had left him. See the beautiful words the writer has used. A deep sadness settled upon his heart. Well, it's an abstract thing, we know. Sadness is an abstract thing. That is unhappiness. So, a deep sadness, unhappiness had settled upon his heart. It came upon his heart. The phrase has been given to you, settled upon, began to feel something strongly. So, something was happening in his heart. He was feeling something. He was feeling sadness in his heart. So, the phrase settled upon his heart means so. Let's read further. The fence was long and high. So it was a very huge fence. It was long, it stretched to a great distance, and it was high. It was elevated as well. He wet the brush and moved it along the top board. So what did he do now? Because he had to paint the fence. So he dipped the brush inside the paint box and made it wet and started painting the top portion of the board, that is the fence. It was made of, say, wood or something, planks of wood. He did it again and did it again. He looked at what he had done. The painted part was very, very small. So now this little boy who had painted very little portion of it, and just having done that, he was so tired, he was so given up by that he stopped to look at what he had done. So he painted a very small part, a very, very small part. But the whole fence was very large. It was a very large fence that he had to paint. He sat down. He felt that he could not continue. Now, having done such a little work, this lazy boy could not complete that fence. He started thinking that he will not be able to complete the whitewashing work that he was given as a punishment. The whole fence was very large for him. That is what he started thinking, and therefore he sat down and felt that he cannot continue anymore. Well, when he was sitting down over there, something happened. Let us read. Jim, a boy who worked for the family, came through the gate. He was going to get water and he was singing happily. You see, another boy of almost his age. What is he doing? He is singing happily, he is hale and hearty, and someone sitting sad over here. So Tom did not like this. Well, he was Jim, and Jim was a person, a boy who used to do little works or small works as a servant in the family. So he appeared, he came through the gate and he was singing happily. Tom said and addressed to Jim, Jim, I will get the water if you will paint. See how clever, how smart he is. What witty things he is using and saying, Jim, I will get the water if you will paint. And see what Jim said in reply. Jim said, no, I must get the water. Well, he was, say, someone who was very loyal to the family. Therefore, he said, no, I must get the water. So, the word he is using, I must get the water. So, he was not ready to do the work for painting for Tom, and he was just going to get the water. Well, somehow Tom wanted to get this work done from Jim. So, see what is he saying later on? Are you afraid of Aunt Polly? So, he is asking a counter question. In order to convince him, in order to manipulate his mind, what is he asking? Are you afraid of Aunt Polly? She won't hurt you. Because you know that Aunt Polly was a very strict lady. Tom's aunt was a very strict woman. As we know about that. How can we say so? Because she had given a very severe punishment to Tom of whitewashing the fence because of having a fight with one of his mates over there in the school. Well, she won't hurt you. She talks about it, but talk never hurts. So what is this smart fellow saying? That she talks about it. She will not hurt you, but talks never hurt. Means she is a very rude speaker. Aunt Polly used to speak very rudely, or used to say or scold very much, but he is saying that talks never hurt. And what about the talks? It never hurts except when she weeps. So further he is adding and saying that yes, it hurts, but when does it hurt? When she starts weeping, when Aunt Polly starts weeping, naturally, when Aunt starts weeping, it hurts to a boy. Also, you should not be afraid of her. Further he is trying to give strength to Jim, that you should not be afraid of her. I will give one of my playthings. Now, just simply asking for help or just simply exchanging work did not work out over here. He wanted to exchange work, that I will bring water and you paint the fence. Well, bringing water would be a matter of minutes, but painting the fence would take a long time and he had to finish that work for a great duration. Well, the work was not yet exchanged. Saying this and asking not to be afraid of Aunt Polly, still he tried to make one more attempt to get the work of painting done by him, by tempting him, by offering a plaything, by saying, I will give you one of my playthings and I will show you my foot. Now what has happened to his foot? Let us see. I will show you where I heard it. Usually it happens sometimes that mates or playmates or people whom you play with or your friends, they've got hurt and you are curious to know about it. You want to see where the person has got hurt. So here Tom is offering one of his playthings as a matter of temptation to get his work of painting done. Not only that much, he is saying that I will show you my foot as well, where I got hurt. Well, Jim was only human, but this time I think so the work is happening. So he thinks that he will be able to make up and exchange the work. Jim was only human. Well, we are all human, isn't it? We sometimes get tempted with things. He took the plaything. So Jim accepted the plaything and the work was about to happen. That is the painting work done by Jim. He took the plaything and he put his head down to look at the foot. And he also looked at Tom's foot to see what had happened to him, what kind of a hurt he had come up with. In another moment, he was running down the street. Something happened over here, something miserable happened over here. That even after taking the plaything and having seen the injured foot, what happened? Jim did not wait over there and the very next moment started running down the street. That is the phrase, running down the street. Well, the writer has not mentioned what happened that he ran down the street, but we can assume that something happened. Let's read the next line. Tom was painting as fast as possible, and what happened? Tom started painting as fast as possible now. He wanted to exchange the work. Something happened over there. Some event happened over there. So we can say, and Aunt Polly was returning to the house. So we can just assume and understand with these three lines over here that Jim started running down the street and Tom started painting as fast as possible. Also, Aunt Polly was returning to the house. So we can just make up and understand over here where the writer has not given us any clue that what actually happened. We can just assume that when this exchange of work or the deal was going on, Tom must have seen Aunt Polly returning to the house. Maybe she had gone somewhere outside and she was now returning. So both these children, when they saw Aunt Polly, both got frightened, isn't it? On one hand, where Tom was saying not to get frightened of Aunt Polly, he himself got frightened. Therefore, he quickly and started painting as fast as possible. And on looking at or seeing the arrival of Aunt Polly, Jim must have got scared and ran down with the plaything in his hand. So despite of having the plaything or given the plaything to Jim and showing him the foot, the injured foot, Tom did not get any help or any kind of work done from Jim. Well, it was a sad thing, but he did try to get this work done from someone else. Let us move ahead and look into the second part given to us from page number 2, which is the continuation of the story. Tom kept working, but soon he began to think of the fun planned for this day. Well, after this, when Aunt Polly had actually returned home, he had to work, so he kept working throughout the day. But soon he began to think. He started his thinking, what should I do? How should I get rid of this painting work? There needs to be some idea or some trick or technique to be used. Well, what was he thinking of at that time? The fun planned for this day. What fun he had planned, because it was a Saturday morning, and Saturday is a weekly off over there. So he had planned to have a lot of fun that day, but all the plan that he had made was now not implementing over here. He and Huck, well, one of his close playmates, which is Huck, as I said, Huckleberry Finn, is yet another sequel of the Adventure of Tom Sawyer by the name Huck and Tom, the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. He and Huck had planned to race down to the river and go swimming. So Tom and Huck had planned to go down, race down and to go swimming in the river. So all his plans have now become vain and useless. He was simply thinking of those plans, but he was not able to execute those plans. His hands moved more slowly. Now when he was thinking about all this, while he was painting with a certain speed or certain pace, his hands became even more slow. Because sometimes when you are at work and you are involved or engrossed in some thinking work, naturally your pace becomes slow because your energy gets divided over there. Similarly, here when he was painting, his hands moved very slowly or more slow. Soon the other boys would come and laugh at him for working. So this was also one of the thoughts going on in the mind of Tom. That when the other boys come over here in a matter of time now, soon, what would happen? They would look at me that I am painting over here on this Saturday morning, on this Saturday, which is a holiday. They would make fun of me and laugh at me for working over here, and they would tease me as well. From his pockets, he took out everything that he owned. Well, he was not a rich person, but whatever you have, that is your richness, or the riches that you have with you. So here, this lazy fellow took out all the things that he had in his hands to observe that if he could buy some help from his friends by offering them these things, as he offered a plaything to Jim, which he had already taken and ran away. So he took out all the belongings that he had, all the riches that he had, that he owned. He looked at it to analyze. There was nothing of real value. So he realized that whatever he had with him in his pocket was not of any great value or real value that could tempt any of his playmates to do the work. Well, it was not enough to buy another boy's help. So whatever he had with him in his pocket was all rubbish, all useless. It was of no good to him. Well, at this dark moment, now, understanding this, realizing this, that he had nothing valuable with him to offer, it is referred to as by the writer, at this dark moment. So this was a dark moment in the life of Tom. At this particular moment when he got disappointed. So we can refer this word to as disappointment. At this dark moment, a wonderful idea came to him. See, something came to his mind. He was a very smart person. It was like a great bright light. So a great bright light sparked in his mind. So a tube light opened up in his mind. He took his brush and went quietly to work. Now what did he do? Well, right now the writer hasn't told us what is the idea. He has not shared with us. As we read the story, we will come to know. He took his brush and went quietly to work. Meaning he just started working. There was something going on in his mind that he was going to execute the plan. Let us see. Now comes in a new character. Ben Rogers appeared soon. One of his playmates, let us see who is this Ben Rogers. Ben Rogers appeared soon. Tom had been especially afraid of Ben's laugh. Well, there was something peculiar about Ben, that when Ben laughed at Tom, he would be very, very afraid of it. So here it is being said that Tom had been especially afraid of Ben's laugh. Means Ben used to make a lot of fun and tease Tom at all these things when he used to get punished. Well, therefore, Tom was very afraid of Ben's laugh. Let's read further. Ben was eating an apple. So this is the scene when Ben appears at Tom's house over here. What was he doing? He was eating an apple. Also, as he walked, he was making noises. Well, he was just walking and coming towards the house of Ben. But he was making some noise along with his eating, or the eating that was taking place, like those of a big river boat. So what noise he was making? Like a river boat. As a river boat travels in a river, it makes some sound of an engine. So he was making some sound from his mouth, and as he was eating an apple and walking to the house of Tom, he would shout loudly. Ben would shout loudly. Then he would say, ding dong dong, like a bell. That's the river boat bell. A river boat has a bell inside it to alert people when it is traveling on the river. So he was trying to imitate as a river boat, we can say over here. Then he would say ding dong dong like a bell. Then he would shout again and say ding dong dong again and make other strange noises. So in this manner, Ben Rogers appeared and approached towards Tom's house with the apple in his hand and eating an apple and making noise like ding dong dong, which is the noise of a river boat which makes. Well, so this was the whole scene when Ben Rogers appeared at Tom's house. So you see how happy, how lively and how exciting Ben Rogers was looking. How happy he was looking. Well, he was the boat, not the real boat, but he was acting as a boat. So he was the boat and he was the captain of the boat and he was boat Ben. So here Ben Roger was playing three roles as an imitation. He was considering himself to be a boat, he was considering himself to be the captain of that boat, and lastly he was considering himself to be the boat Ben. That is why he was making all this noise and approaching towards the Tom's house. Now see what else he was doing. Turn her, he shouted. Slow her, stop. See, so he was giving commands as a captain gives to people when they are navigating on the boat, on the river. So, turn her, slow her, stop are the commands given by Ben Roger as he was coming towards Ben's house. He made a slow, careful turn. Not only that, he was even doing actions in very slow motion. He made a slow, careful turn, came close beside Tom and stopped because he wanted to see what Tom was doing, as he could see that he was painting the fence. So in order to come and tease Tom, he came very close to Tom and stopped over there next to him, beside him. Tom continued his painting. Tom did not bother at all. Tom continued his painting. He did not look at the boat. Boat means that is Ben Roger who was acting as a boat. Therefore, the boat word has been used. Tom continued his painting. He did not look at the boat. Ben said, he started the conversation. Hello, you are in trouble. So see, here the teasing starts. Ben is now trying to say such a statement that would annoy Tom and tease him and make him irritated. But see, does he get irritated? Ben said, hello, you are in trouble. No answer. Tom does not reply at all. Tom moved his brush gently and looked at the result. So what was Tom doing? He was trying to ignore Ben Roger's appearance over there. Simply he painted the fence up, down, whatever he wanted to do. He moved his brush gently and looked at the results. He wanted to see how he was painting. So he looked at the results intermediately, stopping. Ben came nearer. Tom wished for the apple, but he did not turn from his work. Now you see the second thing happening over here. Now, when Tom was not giving any response to what he was saying, Ben came even closer, even nearer to Tom. But Tom wished for the apple that Ben was eating. After all, he was a child, isn't it? He was longing for that apple to eat. Someone is eating and you have the apple, if you do not have the apple in hand. Sometimes it happens, children are tempted. So here Tom was tempted to get that apple. But he could not ask for it because he wanted to pretend, or he wanted to say that as if he was enjoying his work. But he did not turn from his work. He did not stop his work. He continued his work. Ben said, hello, you must work, must you? Another sentence he said. One more time he tried to tease him and irritate him by saying some other words. Hello, you must work, must you? Tom turned slowly this time. This was the second time Ben Roger tried to address to Tom. Well, this time he turned. Oh Ben, it's you, is it? I did not see you. See how great he is pretending over here? He is just trying to pretend as if he does not know that Ben Roger has arrived over here and he is standing next to him, although he was longing for the apple. But he was making a great pretendance over here. Tom turned slowly. Oh Ben, it's you, isn't it? Is it? I did not see you. So he says this, and further he says, I am going swimming. I am. Do you wish you could go with me, or would you rather work? Now, what is happening over here? Ben is trying to ask Tom and tell him that I am going swimming. I am really going to go swimming. Do you wish you could go with me? Do you think that you could go with me? Do you think like that you have a chance to go with me? Or would you rather work, or you will be working over here? Means you will not be enjoying the Saturday fun that we had planned. Well, Tom said, what do you mean, work? So see way he is trying to represent his work over here by saying these words in a very light manner, in a very surprising way. Tom said, "What do you mean?" And then saying, "Work? That is work." Tom returned to his painting without wasting time. "It may be work, it may be not." So what's diplomatic reply he is using over here? It may be work, it may not be work, it may be fun also. But it is fine for Tom Sawyer, but saying how boasting he is saying that it may be work, it may not be work, but it is fine for Tom Sawyer. Tom Sawyer is okay with it. Tom Sawyer is enjoying it. Well, on this note, on this statement of Tom Sawyer, Ben Roger is compelled to ask a question. "Do you mean that you are enjoying it? You enjoy it?" Well, Ben Rogers was now compelled to ask this question because he thought in his mind that Tom is punished over here and he is not enjoying this. But at this statement, when he does not get irritated, he is forced to ask this question. "Do you mean that you enjoy it? Enjoy it? Does a boy get a chance to paint a fence every day?" See the diplomatic and the cunning reply that he is giving to Ben Rogers. So here that's the plan of Tom Sawyer that we discussed a short while ago. He's saying, enjoy it. Does a boy have a chance to paint a fence every day? Does a boy get a chance to paint a fence every now and then? This is once in a lifetime opportunity that you get. Here was a new idea in Tom's mind that had come up. Ben stopped eating his apple. Now when Tom is giving such a reply, which was very, very surprising to hear for Ben, he stopped eating his apple. Tom moved his brush, stepped away to look at the result. Well, Tom continued his work. He applied the paint and as usual he used to step behind one or two steps as we do when you paint something. You happen to just observe your work that you're doing it correctly. So he was trying to be a very professional person as he was doing his work. Added a little paint here, added a little paint there and stepped away again. Well, all this what Tom was doing was being watched by Ben. Ben watched. He was more and more interested. So now Ben's interest was multiplying over here. Ben was getting tempted to do that work of painting. Well, he did not ask for help. Tom never asked for help. But he created such an environment over there that he was trying to now tempt Ben Rogers and trying to give a message to him that the work of painting the fence was a great work. Then he said, "Tom, let me paint a little." So you see how cleverly Tom made Ben Rogers speak up from his own mouth and make him ask to paint the fence. Well, "Tom, let me paint a little." Now it happened. Tom thought, then he said, well, if at first he would have given the work to Tom, given the work to Ben, what would have happened? It would have been very easily given away, and maybe after a while, what would happen? Ben would lose interest in that. So he again tried to develop or tried to build up the excitement over here. Tom thought, then he said, "No, Ben, Aunt Polly wants this fence to be perfect." See the diplomatic statement again he is using over here. The cunningness he is using over here. "No, Ben, Aunt Polly wants this fence to be perfect," as if he is going to do it perfectly. Well, the lazy lad is saying so. "If it was for the fence behind the house, you could help." Still he is adding something to it and saying that if it was a matter of painting the fence behind the house, then still I would have given you a chance to do it. But because this is the front fence over here, it needs to be done very, very perfectly. So Aunt Polly wants it to be very, very perfect. So I can't help you. Then otherwise you could have helped me if it was for the back side of the house. But this fence beside the street must be done very carefully. There is not one boy in 1,000 who could do it well. See how he is boasting himself. So he is saying there is not one boy in 1,000. It means he is one and only of that kind in 1,000 who could do this perfectly and nobody else could do it. He was so important, or he was such a great painter. Well, having given this reply, he refused for the first time and did not allow Ben to paint the fence. Let's see what happened now. Well, the plan had already started. "Oh Tom, let me try." Obviously, when Tom must have refused, Ben must have now made a second plea, a second request. "Oh Tom, let me try. Only a little, just a little one. I'll be careful." So even Ben wanted to say that I am a careful person, I am a careful boy. I will do it very carefully. Don't worry about that. "I will give you a part of my apple." Well, even after saying that I will be careful, Ben added tempting or trying to give a temptation or trying to give a kind of incentive or a payment to get that enjoyment work of painting done at Tom's house over there, Tom's fence over there. So what did Ben offer now? Ben offered a part of the apple. Well, even he's a child, how could he give away the whole apple? So he just said to the first, "I'll give you a part of my apple." At this, what happened? Let us see. "No, Ben, I'm afraid." Again he made a refusal the second time, saying, "No, Ben, I'm afraid. I'm really sorry, but I can't give it to you." Well, immediately Ben offered the whole of the apple. "I will give you all of it." Now Ben was steadfast, and at any cost he wanted to get hands over the painting of the fence. So he now offered the entire apple to, well, this was the time when Tom had actually arrived at the achievement that he wanted. He was able to come out, or he was able to make up for the task. Well, Tom gave the brush to Ben slowly, but with joy in his heart. Isn't it? He would be feeling very, very joyous. Finally, his plan had worked now. Tom gave the brush to Ben slowly, but with joy in his heart. And while the boy, who a few moments before had been a riverboat worker, became hot in the sun, now who was just enjoying his day by imitating as a riverboat, eating the apple, making sounds, being a hale and hearty guy. Now what happened? He was doing a laborious work, a hard work. He was toiling in that hot sun over there, perspiring like anything, and stressing himself, became a worker in the hot sun. Why? What happened? Tom sat under the tree, eating the apple and planning how to get more help. Well, this was the first way or the first technique trick that worked out for Tom. His plan worked out and he got help from Ben to whitewash the fence. Well, the fence was very big, so he knew that he would require some more help from other boys. So he was sitting under the shady tree, enjoying and eating the apple and trying to think of other similar plans to trap boys to get his work of whitewashing the fence. Well, there were enough boys. They came along the street, stopped to laugh. Now, there were many boys in that village, in the town over there, who had come to Tom's house, and they had come over here, all over here, to laugh at Tom, to make fun of him. But everyone came in the street over there, stopped to laugh, but remained to paint. None of them got a chance to laugh over here today, which they used to usually do. After Ben came Bill Fisher. After Ben, Bill Fisher painted the fence. Then Johnny Miller came. So you see, one after the other, the names are getting added. A few names have been given to us. After Ben came Bill Fisher. He painted the fence. Then Johnny Miller came. Well, no one painted the fence for free. Everyone had to give something in return to Tom in order to get that enjoyment. Each one paid to be allowed to work. So you see, the work that Tom didn't want to do, or he was ready to give something to his playmates in the beginning when he started this work, what he was thinking about, that he did not have any valuables. Instead, the whole thing turned to become a good affair for him, a kind of entertainment or a kind of a boon for him. So each one paid to be allowed to work. In the middle of the afternoon, Tom was very rich. Initially, when he had put his hands in his pocket and taken out the valuables that he had, He found that it was worthless, it was having no value. But by afternoon, he had become very rich. Now let us see what are those riches that he earned. He had many playthings. Well, he had given one plaything to Jim, but now he had many playthings by afternoon. A small cat with one eye, a piece of broken glass, broken blue glass, and much more. Well, just two things have been mentioned: a small cat with one eye, a piece of broken blue glass, and much more. Well, all these riches were collected by Tom by afternoon, and the work was still going on, and Tom did not have to make any efforts to get the fence painted. Let us see concluding part of the story, what happens, the chapter. And he had not worked. That's the most important thing. The fence was getting painted, he was earning riches, and the most important thing that he had not worked. He did not have. Means his punishment was now taken up by other people. He had turned out his punishment as a factor of enjoyment for him. He had turned it out to be a fun-loving thing for himself. Well, the whole fence had been painted 3 times. Not once, but 3 times it had been coated. So imagine how well and how perfect the fence would have been painted by that time. There was no more paint. Now see the hike of it. There was no more paint. With more paint, Tom would soon have owned everything belonging to the other boys. Now, if there was more paint with Tom, then what would have happened? He would have taken away all the belongings of the people, of the boys living over there in that place. So that is the tragic part over here. Perhaps there is no more paint now. If there would have been more paint, he would have even earned more. Perhaps he would have earned everything that the boys had over there. That was belonging to the boys. Well, so all the paint was exhausted. The fence was painted 3 times. It was coated 3 times, and he earned a lot of valuables. And the other boys in the village could have owned nothing. And finally, it is being said that village boys would have become bankrupt. They would have nothing left with them if there would have been more paint. Well, due to lack of paint, he was not able to earn more, and the work came to an end. But the good part is that he did not have to paint the fence, and his punishment was fulfilled by or done by the others in disguise or unknowingly, you can say. Tom had discovered. The last line is very important, so be very, very attentive. I think you will really enjoy reading this. Tom had discovered a great law of human action. He learned something that day by doing all this. He learned a great law of human action. And what is that law? A man or a boy will desire something if it is not easy to get, isn't it? The same rule applies for us as human beings. If something is difficult to achieve or something is very, very hard, and if you desire for that strongly, what happens? You desire a lot for that. You have a craving for that. A man or a boy will desire something if it is not easy to get. The same law was applied by Tom Sawyer in order to get the whitewashing of that huge fence done by his friends. Otherwise, he was planning in the beginning to give things and get the work done. Instead, he got things and got the work done. So you see how beautifully the story has come to an end, and we've learnt about the wittiness of this character Tom Sawyer and how well the writer has written. Well, this was all about the story and the law of human action, strong desire and wise action. See you soon in the next lecture to discuss some other things. Till then, have a nice day, take care.